My name's Sarah, and I'm 20 years old. Just had my birthday 3 days back. At home, it's me, my mom's stepdad, and my stepsister, who's 15. She's honestly the worst. Always trying to outdo me, acting all snobby and mean. We've never gotten along. My dad passed away when I was little, so I barely remember him. But I sure do remember all the arguing with my mom. Sometimes I think if my dad were still here, things might have been easier. Mom got married to my stepdad when I was 16, and he moved in with us. But she's been with him since I was 13. After dating for 3 years, they got married and moved in together. Even before they got married, my stepsister was a big problem. When my stepdad moved in, she got even worse. She annoyed me all the time and started more fights. I told my mom many times, and even talked to her dad about it. But they said it's just normal fighting between siblings and didn't do anything about it. The truth is, they both loved my stepsister more. My stepdad always took her side because she's his real daughter. And even my mom treated her better than me. It hurt because she never did the same for me. As I grew up, I realized my mom and I are very different, and she didn't like that at all. When I was young, I liked boyish things like sports, games, and cars. But my mom wanted me to be more girly. She wanted me to wear dresses, do my hair, and learn makeup when I was just 7 years old. It's not that those things are bad, they just weren't my style. I felt like I couldn't be myself if I was always trying to please my mom. This caused a lot of arguments between us. She wanted me to be like her mini-me, but I wanted to be my own person. She never understood or respected that. My stepsister, on the other hand, was exactly what my mom wanted. It hurt because I was trying so hard to get my mom to like me for who I am. But then my stepsister came along and stole all her attention. My stepsister got all the love and attention from my mom, which made me really sad. It was hard enough that my mom took her side all the time, but my stepsister's attitude made it even worse. I couldn't stand being around her and couldn't wait to leave for college. So when I turned 18, I was super happy because I graduated from high school. Soon, I'd be off to college with a sports scholarship for playing lacrosse. I was ready to leave this place behind. I thought my mom would do something special for my 18th birthday, since it would be the last one I celebrated at home with her. After this, I'd only come home for the holidays. I thought my mom would be excited for me, but I was wrong. Ever since my stepsister came into the picture, I've felt like I don't belong. I shouldn't have expected anything different. Not only did my mom not do anything special for my birthday, but she also sat me down later that day to talk about the future. She said my stepsister would start college soon, but she didn't have a sports scholarship like me, and her grades weren't good enough for an academic one. So my mom wanted me to help pay for her college, or else I wouldn't be welcome to stay here anymore. I was shocked. When I asked her to repeat herself, she said they decided to start saving up for my stepsister's college fund now to avoid problems later. Now that I was an adult, my mom and stepdad wanted me to help pay for my stepsister's college expenses. If I didn't, they said I couldn't live with them anymore. I was shocked by this demand because I couldn't afford to help. It felt crazy that they would cut me off for not helping my stepsister, who I didn't even get along with. My mom seemed serious about it, which made me really nervous. I didn't want to argue, so I said I needed time to think and went to my room. My mom works as a nurse, and my stepdad is a pediatrician. They both work at the same hospital, so they must make enough money to support my stepsister without needing my help. It felt unfair for them to ask me to contribute, especially since my stepsister and I didn't even have a good relationship. If we did, I might have considered helping out, but she's not a nice person, and I can't stand her. Why should I help pay for her college? It doesn't make any sense. Plus, I'm heading off to college myself soon. How can she expect me to send money when I'll need it for my own expenses? Even if I find a job there, it's not fair to ask me to chip in for my stepsister when I'll probably need that money for myself. I can't even refuse because of the threat of being kicked out. I want to come home for the holidays, and I'm not sure if I'll be allowed to do that if I don't help. It's scary to think I might end up homeless after college. After thinking it over, I realized there's just no way I can make this work. This situation wasn't fair to me at all. Instead of arguing with my mom, I decided to talk to my grandparents. I didn't want to keep negotiating with my mom only to be disappointed. Honestly, I didn't think it was worth arguing with her. She never understood my side and always favored my stepsister over me. My mom didn't want me to talk to my grandparents much. She said they were fragile and didn't need any trouble from me. I was only allowed to talk to them about safe things and could only visit them with her, never on my own. Once, I went to visit them without telling my mom, and when I told her later, she got really upset. I decided not to visit my grandparents alone again to avoid any drama. Even though they seemed fine to me, I didn't want to upset my mom. I'd always followed her rules about how to interact with them. But that day, I knew I had to break the rules and talk to them if I wanted their help convincing my mom. My grandparents were the only ones who could make my mom listen. I really needed them on my side this time to avoid being kicked out. I couldn't imagine working through college just to help my stepsister. So I planned to talk to my mom and secretly record her repeating the conditions she'd set for me. At first, I just wanted to tell my grandparents about the crazy demand my mom made and how she threatened to kick me out if I didn't help my stepsister. But as I spoke, all my feelings came rushing out and I ended up crying while explaining everything to them. I guess I wasn't handling my mom's rejection as well as I thought. I opened up about how badly I was treated at home, and they seemed shocked because whenever they saw me with my mom, I acted happy. But that was just a mask I had to wear because my mom didn't want my grandparents to worry. She said they were too old and sick. I never believed that because my grandparents were only in their early 60s and looked healthy to me. I think my mom didn't want me talking to my grandparents because she was scared I'd tell them how she treated me. She knew they'd be upset with her for favoring my stepsister over me. And that's exactly what happened when I told them everything. They comforted me and said they'd fix things. I wasn't sure what they meant, but my grandpa looked angry. After I calmed down, they gave me some money and told me to go out with my friends for my 18th birthday. They promised to make things right while I was out, which made me feel relieved. So I went out with my friends, and we had a great time celebrating my birthday late into the night. At around 9 o'clock, my grandparents texted me, asking me to come back to their place instead of going home. So I went there. It was surprising that I hadn't heard from my mother by then. Usually, if my grandparents talked to her about what I said, she'd be eager to confront me, so her silence felt strange. I got to my grandparents' house by 10 o'clock. After freshening up, they sat me down and said they'd talk to my mom. They assured me that everything was okay now. They explained that they asked my family to leave the house they were living in so they could transfer ownership to me. Turns out that house was a wedding gift from my grandparents to my parents, and they've been living there ever since. When my grandparents found out how my mom treated me, they realized they had to step in. They talked to her and asked her to take back what she said to me and treat me better. Instead of admitting she was wrong, she got defensive and told my grandpa to stay out of it. She thought now that I was an adult, I should start earning and giving back to the family, or I wouldn't have a place in her home anymore. That made my grandpa really mad because it wasn't fair. After a heated argument, he told her to leave the house since it was still legally his property. He never formally transferred ownership to her, so he had the power to evict her. She chose to leave rather than be a better mom to me. Not a surprise. My mom told my grandpa that her main focus was her own family now, not me, as if I wasn't part of her family or related to her by blood. She said she'd clear out of the house by the end of the week if that's what he wanted, then hung up. That's why I hadn't heard from her. My grandparents explained that it wasn't just what I told them that made them act, but also how my mom had been treating them for the past couple of years since she got married. She believed her husband and stepdaughter were her only family now and visited her parents only once or twice every 2 months. They stopped asking her to visit more often, but they did ask her to let me talk to them or visit them, and she always made excuses, claiming I was too busy, which wasn't true. She just didn't want me to see my grandparents because she was afraid I'd tell them the truth. She cleverly manipulated us into staying apart for her own selfish reasons. Now her manipulation and deceit had caught up with her, and she had to leave the house she'd lived in for almost 2 decades. I was upset that she chose my stepsister over me, but even more disgusted and angry that she thought her actions were justified. I was really disappointed and had given up hope that my mom would ever love me as much as my stepsister. I started to see her true colors. I actually felt relieved spending the night at my grandparents' place because I didn't want to see or hear from my mom. I hated being her daughter, and I hated her even more for what she did. The next morning, I went home with my grandpa to pack some clothes and essentials to stay with my grandparents until my mom and her family moved out. It was around noon, and nobody had left for work. Even my stepsister was home. They all looked upset, but I ignored them and went straight to my room to pack. My grandpa helped me. After about 10 minutes, my mom came into the room and insisted on talking to me in person. I didn't want to, but she kept pushing, so I agreed. She said she was bluffing on the phone with my grandpa and couldn't afford to move out so quickly. Now she needed me to talk to my grandpa to fix things. I was shocked that she would even make another request of me after everything that happened. So I flat out refused right to her face and told her she had no right to talk to me after what she did. She made her decision, and now she had to stick to it. Then she started to cry and said she didn't mean to hurt me. She claimed she was only trying to teach me responsibility when she asked for my help with my stepsister's college fund. She said if I had just talked to her instead of complaining to my grandparents, I would have known she didn't mean what she said. She only wanted to teach me to be responsible with money. She promised that all the money I sent for my stepsister's college fund would go into a separate account that she planned to give me later if I just talked to her once about my feelings. She said she never intended to kick me out, especially over something like this. But now, because of my actions, she might lose her home, and that hurt her deeply. She said I could do whatever I wanted, but asked me to remember that she loved me and always wanted what was best for me. I was speechless and didn't know what to do. It's been 2 days and I haven't talked to anyone about it. I'm not sure if my mom was telling the truth, but I feel guilty about it. I can't talk to my friends or family, so I'm turning to you for advice. I did tell my grandparents what my mom said, and my grandpa was skeptical. He thought my mom was just bluffing to manipulate me into letting them stay. I agreed with him. I became emotional because I didn't believe my mom had suddenly changed. The only way to know for sure was to test her, so I called her and told her I still wanted my grandpa to transfer the ownership of the house to me, just in case. At first, my mom seemed surprised and tried to reassure me, but when I insisted, she got defensive and accused me of not trusting her. I argued back, saying I couldn't suddenly trust her after years of mistreatment. She snapped at me, saying she didn't want a daughter like me. This just confirmed my suspicions that she was only being nice to avoid eviction and gain legal ownership of the house. Well, she showed her true colors, and I won't let her have the house. She can go to hell for all I care. If she doesn't want me as a daughter, fine. I don't want her as a mother either. Update 2, the legal process is done, and the house is officially mine. My mom has started moving out. Initially, she had a week, but we extended it to 2 weeks. Now she has about 4 days left. My grandparents plan to sell their current house and move in with me to take care of the house when I'm at college. I think it's a fantastic idea, and I'm excited to begin my new life. Update 3. So this might be my last update for a while now that things are falling into place. My mom moved out today, but not before she handed me the keys and warned me nastily that I might regret this decision. I don't understand her bitterness, considering she found an apartment near her school and work on short notice. It's smaller, but she should be grateful, like I am for my amazing grandparents and supportive friends. I'm also grateful for everyone here. Despite being strangers, you've all been kind to me and I appreciate it. I'm typing this in my old room, in my old house, but now with a family who loves me. In a few months, I'll be off to college. I'm finally living the life I've always wanted, and I couldn't be happier. Stay tuned for more stories about my journey.